comes to bad habits. They can be annoyances like someone who starts cracking their knuckles right next to you, or a friend of yours who you love very much but who constantly drops the word like into like every other sentence. Hey, but you've got one too. Everyone has at least one bad habit that they can't shake. Or can they? Welcome to Wellcast. This week, we took another viewer suggestion from Frantic Cow, who wrote in asking for a video on breaking bad habits. So today, you guessed it, we're going to examine why it's so darn difficult to give up chowing down on junk food or chowing down on your fingernails. We've also got a 4-step method for overcoming your biggest vice. Are you ready? First and foremost, how do bad habits even form? Studies by the National Institute of Health point to 2 main reasons. The first reason is repetition. If you do something often enough, say you twirl your pencil during class, your brain decides it can stop wasting precious neurons thinking about it. So it checks out and goes on vacation. You could be twirling your pencil through AP English, Social Studies, Algebra, and Trig without even thinking about it. The other way bad habits are formed is through positive reinforcement, which sounds like a really good thing, but it can be dangerous. Let's talk about that energy drink that you insist on sucking back when you're up late studying. Gives you a nice boost of energy, and it helps you get through to the end of that mind-numbingly boring paper you're writing on Chaucer. But the reason why this kind of habit is hard to break is that a nice surge of energy at 11 p.m. is an enjoyable feeling. And enjoyable feelings usually result in your brain releasing dopamine. This is partly why people often crave things that aren't even enjoyable for them anymore. The brain is jonesing for dopamine. But don't worry, my habitual compadres. Human beings are pretty amazing at changing and adapting. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to obliterate that bad habit in 4 easy steps. Pause and print this sheet at watchwellcast.com. Step 1. Let's start at the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. Write down the bad habit you're trying to quit. Start simple, choose just one. Step 2. Learn to avoid your triggers. Take some time to think about the things that really make you crave doing your bad habit. If biting your nails is your vice, your triggers might be, that last-minute quiz. Oh no, I gotta pay my electric bill, or how much money do I have in my account for rent? List these triggers in section 2 of your worksheet. Next to these triggers, write a list of ways you can avoid them. For example, read your syllabus every week, or make sure that you plan for automatic deductions for your electric bill. Step 3, substitute your bad habits for not-so-bad habits. Basically, you want to teach your brain by repetition to learn a new habit. So, if you tend to bite your nails when you're stressed and alone in your living room, stock your refrigerator with carrots and celery so that you can reach for something else to chew on when you're stressed out. Write a substitution next to every trigger on section 3 of your worksheet. Step 4. Gather your army. You do not have to do this alone. Enlist your friends to help you defeat this bad habit. Start by telling them that you're planning on eliminating this bad habit, and you need their help. Just the simple act of letting them in on this battle that you're waging is a step in the right direction. Remember, your friends can be bodyguards. They'll stand between you and your brain. Tell them to police you. If they see you reaching for those nails to bite, give them the permission to remind you of your mission. Or even slap your hand. Whatever you want. All right, guys, let's recap. Today, you learned 4 steps for beating your bad habit. You decided which habit you wanted to kick. You figured out your triggers for this bad habit, and you decided on ways to avoid and replace these triggers with healthier alternatives. If all else fails, you learn to enlist your friends in the fight.
Tweet us at WatchWellcast, email us at watchwellcast@gmail.com, or leave a comment down below. We'll see you next time.
Okay, friends and neighbors, it's Friday, the day you've been waiting for, Friday, January 23rd. How about it? Good to see you today. Lots to talk about before we head into the weekend. We are here with you, of course, on Free Speech TV, nationwide on the Dish Network and on DirecTV, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV. President Obama back in the White House today after spending 2 days selling his State of the Union package in Boise, Idaho, and Lawrence, Kansas. He comes back to Washington in the middle of a big brouhaha over Bibi. Yes, John Boehner inviting Prime Minister Netanyahu in an outrageous breach of protocol, inviting the Israeli Prime Minister to address a joint session of Congress and to disagree with President Obama, basically to offer a rebuttal to the State of the Union, which is no business of the Israeli prime ministers. He thinks President Obama is wrong to say we should wait to put any more sanctions on Iran until we see how these negotiations work out. If they work out, fine. If they don't, we will slap on more sanctions. We have time to do that. Most Republicans and some Democrats disagree with the president, but for the Israeli prime minister to come here and make that case himself is sticking his nose into American politics where he does not belong. And the White House says, fine, you want to come to Washington to meet with John Boehner? Fine, but you're not coming to the White House, dude. And by the way, I think what they ought to add is, next time you want some money from the United States, ask John Boehner. Don't ask the White House. That's a bad deal for Bibi. I hope he changes his mind. Meanwhile, the Patriots had their big news conference yesterday. Bill Belichick says, "You want to know about those footballs?" Ask Tom Brady. Tom Brady says, "I don't know nothing." But one thing we know is when 11 out of 12 of the footballs were deflated, that's no accident. They cheated. Give us a call about all of the above and more at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us on this Friday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases, rainwater, fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. Small actions do ripple and they add up and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that could be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet with climate change and these really big issues and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that anybody could look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, the power of our daily actions is all that we have. And like Archimedes said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
They cheated. Yeah, Belichick and Brady yesterday saying they didn't know anything about it, but 11 out of 12 footballs deflated was no accident. Now what happens? What do you say, everybody? Good to see you on a Friday. Yep, here we go. Friday, January 23rd. Our favorite day around the Bill Press Show. Oh, it's so good to get here to this Friday, don't you think? Yep, you know it is. We worked hard to get to this Friday. Some of us were here all 5 days.
Suckers.
Great to see you today. Thank you so much for tuning in on your local progressive talk radio station. And thanks for looking at us on Free Speech TV. We are here with you from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Congress, for the most part, heading out of town yesterday, but the president is back in town. And we'll bring you up to date on the latest news from our nation's capital, from around the country and around the globe. That's our job, your job. Tell us what you think about it. 866-55-PRESS. You want to weigh in on the issues of the day. We'll get it off your chest early in the morning here on the Bill Press Show. Again, 866-55-PRESS, our toll-free number. You can reach us on Twitter at the PP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Hail, hail, the gang's all here on a Friday. Peter Ogburn with a miraculous overnight cure. Nice to see you back, Peter.
Yes, indeed.
Lisa Murphy.
Hey, good morning.
Carrying the whole burden yesterday of the show.
Right. Yes, appreciate it.
Your calls ready for Alicia Cruz on the switchboard there, ready to take your calls again, 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Bolding. Mr. Gummy Bear Man, he's got the cameras and the lights on this morning and keeping us looking good on the video stream and on Free Speech, the TV. Have you been watching this measles outbreak in Disneyland, not Disney World? But apparently caused by, spread by some kids who came in there who had not been vaccinated. Mm-hmm. First of all, dumb-ass parents, I'm sorry, who don't do the right thing for their kids because they have these weirdo ideas, that measles vaccinations are not safe. Hello, this is the year 2015.
Science is out there, man.
Right? Yeah. I mean, all doctors say, look, this has been tested. Millions and millions and millions of kids have had it. And if they don't have it, look at the consequences. So, I mean, if I were Disney, I would say, I want to see your health certificate before you bring your kids in the car. Yeah.
You set up a vaccine shop right near the entrance.
Well, there are countries you can't go to unless you have certain shots, right?
Schools,
schools.
If you don't have the shots, you got to show proof,
Yeah, absolutely. But at any rate, it keeps... The CBS News every night it keeps covering the story because it's like there are more and more every day. There are more and more kids who are impacted. Conan O'Brien even talked about last night how Disney's trying to track them all down.
California officials want to contain a measles outbreak that originated in Disneyland last month. They want to contain it. Yeah. They're in luck because apparently everyone who was exposed to it is still in line at Space Mountain.
That is one way to contain it, right? But, I don't know whether... I don't think there are any new cases. I think they're still trying to follow through the ones who were impacted by that last time around. But unnecessary little grief for a lot of families because of these idiots who feel that they know more than they're like the climate deniers, you know?
At this point,
Yeah. All right, we got a big show for you today. Congressman Jared Polis from Colorado making his first appearance on the Bill Press Show in studio. Susan Page joins us as she does every Friday from USA Today. And Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund will be along to talk about a lot of foreign policy news overnight,
stuff going on,
including the death of King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia and King Salman taking over. The king is dead. Long live the king. Boy, happens overnight in Saudi Arabia. We will get to all of that and the biggest foreign policy flap here in our nation's capital. But first, our full court press today brought to you by Health Mart Pharmacies. Visit healthmart.com for the locally owned pharmacy near you.
This is the Full Court Press.
With that, Peter?
Just a couple of other stories making news. A bizarre story out of Cairo at the Egyptian Museum. Someone allegedly broke off the braided beard of King Tut. The King Tut mask.
Wow.
Someone was trying to clean it, they said, and broke the beard off. It was allegedly a worker. That's not the worst part. The worst part is they just grabbed some glue and glued it back on in hopes that nobody would notice. Things like this usually take months to restore and fix if something goes wrong. They really put it in
solid gold.
Yes, it's been broken off. He was given an instant shave. It's now going to go back into restoration, and Museum Conservation Department says that they're going to see what they can do to fix this. But yeah, I don't think super glue is what you're looking for when you're trying to fix something like that.
I think somebody may be looking for a job.
Yeah, I think so. How about some good news? We go to India.
Good news.
We go to India where the number of...
I wouldn't go to India for good news.
Well, here's one bit of good news. Right. I'll put it that way. Out of India, the number of tigers has seen a sharp increase over the last 7 years. You know, in 2008...
There's a lot of food there.
Yeah, in 2008... In 2008... There were only 1,400 tigers in India, but as of the end of last year, they pulled all the tigers there. I guess little tiger census. 2,226 tigers. So a big jump in the last 7 years. So that's good news for the tigers.
Or as the Pope would say, those tigers are breeding like rabbits.
Exactly. Yeah. And Google has they've invested $1 billion into SpaceX, Elon Musk's company.
I saw that.
They partnered with Fidelity. They said $1 billion is going to go in, which makes them about what they say just under 10% owner in the company. The reason they want to do this is they want to send up satellites to provide internet to places that you can't get reliable internet. That's the kind of the next step of Google. So they'll be sending their satellites into space via SpaceX because now they fund a large chunk of it.
And plus, SpaceX, they've got all that money now for they want to be on Mars before anybody else, right?
Yeah.
So
there you
they
go.
might get there. Google. All right. Hey, we start today on a little unusual tack, but I'd love to get your take on this. It's the biggest story in Washington today, and it's getting a lot of attention around the country and around the world. And that is the big flap over Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu coming to Washington 3 weeks from now to address a joint session of Congress invited by John Boehner to rebut the president's State of the Union. Yes, invited by John Boehner to stand up in front of a joint session of Congress and say President Obama is wrong when it comes to sanctions on Iran. Outrageous. But let's back up here, first of all. And, those of you who tune in every day, God bless you, and or watch us every day. We don't talk that foreign policy that much, particularly when it comes to the Middle East. I tend to focus on domestic politics and domestic policy. But this is foreign policy and American politics coming together. We got to talk about it. So first, let's just understand the issue, because I've heard President Obama talk about this several times at the White House. I think he's right on this point. We are, and we're going to talk to Joe Cirincione a little bit later in the program about it, but we're in some very important, intense negotiations with Iran right now. We happen to have the toughest sanctions on Iran ever at this point, and they have worked to a certain extent. Iran has already given up some part. The goal is that they would never have a nuclear weapon, never build one, never have the capacity to build it. They have already given up some of their nuclear program, and we're now in the final stages of negotiations about whether or not they're going to basically give up the whole thing. These are ongoing. I think they go like until November or something like that, whatever. And the president's point is, so let's let these negotiations work. There's a chance they might succeed. And if they do, we're really in good shape. If they don't, we'll just slap more sanctions on Iran. That's what he's saying. But to slap more sanctions on Iran right now would mean that Iran would get up, walk away from the table, and the whole thing would collapse. There are people in Congress who say, no, the hardliners say, who really, like John McCain, bomb, Iran, bomb. Remember? But they want a war with Iran. They want a third war. And they're saying, no, we have to put the toughest possible, the toughest sanctions ever are not enough. We have to even slap more on them. Then do it right now, because that's going to force them to do the right thing in the negotiations. So you got two schools of thought, okay? I think Obama's right. He's not taking anything off the table. He's just saying the timing is not right now. But McCain's got his point of view. And by the way, Bob Menendez, Democrat, chair of the Foreign Relations Committee, agrees with John McCain. So you have a difference of opinion on this in the Congress. That's fine. That's what American politics is all about. They can battle it out. Whoever wins, right? But now, here's the sticky point. John Boehner wants somebody to stand up and rebut President Obama on this issue. So who does he invite to come and address a joint session of Congress? The Prime Minister of Israel. And the Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu, accepts, and he's going to do it 3 weeks from today, which I think is an outrageous breach of protocol. I'll say it as clearly as I can. The Prime Minister of Israel has no stinking business getting involved in American politics. It's bad for him, it's bad for this country, and I think it's bad for Israel. Now, John Boehner, why is he doing this? He's doing this, of course, to poke President Obama in the eye. He insists that he's not.
I did not consult with the White House. The Congress can make this decision on its own. I don't believe I'm poking anyone in the eye.
Oh, yes, he is. Oh, he's deliberately doing this. I mean, he could rebut the president. He could ask John McCain to rebut. He could ask Bob Menendez. I mean, they have committee hearings. But to have a joint session of Congress, to have the leader of another country come into our Congress and say, your president is wrong on this issue, outrageous. And by the way, he never consulted the White House, but the Israeli government never consulted the White House. They never informed the White House, pardon me, that our Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu, never called Obama to say, I got this invitation from Boehner and I'm thinking, by the way, of doing it. No. As Jen Psaki does a great job as press secretary of the State Department yesterday, the day before yesterday, pointed out, certainly unusual breach of protocol.
Certainly, traditionally, we would learn about the plans of a leader to come to the United States separately from learning about it from the Speaker of the House, which is how we learned of Prime Minister Netanyahu's plans to come and speak to a joint session.
So this is John Boehner thumbing his nose at the president. Expect that. But this is Bibi Netanyahu thumbing his nose at the president. And if you think this is right, you think this is okay, you don't have a problem with this, think about how other countries would react, right? If we sent Joe Biden or we sent President Obama into Germany in the middle of election and basically take sides. Now, we know that Bibi Netanyahu basically endorsed Romney in the last election, which was bad enough. But how about they have an election coming up in Germany, let's say, right? Or in the UK. And the president goes over there and says, I think your guy stinks. I hate this guy that you got now. I want the other guy. So throw him out and put my buddy in. Do you think people would accept that? They raise holy hell, rightfully so. Netanyahu has no freaking business on this issue. He's already addressed joint session of Congress, by the way, twice on American-Israeli relations. Fine. But to come in here on this issue for the purpose of saying the president is wrong, I think it's outrageous for Boehner. It's outrageous for him. And I would hope that Netanyahu would change his mind.
You know, one of the things that really
and not do it. And just
drives
say,
me
no,
nuts.
This is not right.
Well, one of the things that drives me crazy about this is you hear all the time Republicans who say, oh, the president isn't reaching out, or the president isn't doing what, presidents have done in the past and bringing everybody in and reaching across the aisle. What is this? They didn't even check with the White House?
No. This
is the same thing that they give him grief for.
Now, I'll tell you one thing. Also, if I were the White House, I would really play hardball in this. The White House has already announced that, okay, if Netanyahu comes here, don't expect a meeting at the White House.
Yeah.
Don't expect to stay at the Blair House, and don't expect to meet with Obama. Boehner invited you, then you hang out with John Boehner. You're not coming to the White House. They've already said that, number one. I hope they go further. Tell me if I'm wrong. 866-55-PRESS. I hope the president would say, fine. And the next time you want some money from the United States, ask John Boehner. Don't ask me. Ask Mitch McConnell. Don't ask me. Ask Bob Menendez. Don't ask me. This is wrong. 866-55-PRESS. Agree or disagree? Let's talk about it.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour now. Just another wrinkle on this. Two quick points on this before we get to your calls about Bibi Netanyahu and the joint session of Congress. Number one, Senator Bob Menendez yesterday said something which I think is really outrageous, too. This is the Democrat. Bob Menendez said, every time I hear the White House talk about this issue, I think they're using talking points from Tehran.
Good grief.
I mean, you know what? That's treason. I'm sorry. That is treason. He's accusing President Obama of using talking points from the Ayatollah. I mean, Menendez. Out of line, number one. Number two, John Kerry was Secretary of State, was asked about this yesterday, and John Kerry said, I think it was in Geneva, wherever he was, and John Kerry said, that's interesting that Bibi Netanyahu has taken this point of view because he said two intelligence officials from Mossad, the intelligence agency in Israel, told John Kerry at their latest meeting in Geneva that if we were to put more sanctions on Iran right now in the middle of these negotiations, these are the Israeli intelligence officials saying, they said it would be like throwing a hand grenade into the room and it would totally destroy the negotiations. So John Kerry says, it's interesting, this is what, and by the way, that has been confirmed by other people who were in that meeting. So that's the powder keg we're talking about. And Bibi Netanyahu is stepping right into the middle of it, buddies with John Boehner. Out in Kansas City, Missouri. Hey, Larry, what are you doing? Thanks for calling.
Good morning, Bill. I think I think this is totally outrageous for Boehner to try to undermine the president's foreign policy. This is totally ridiculous. Netanyahu would never permit anyone to come in and address the Knesset.
Yeah, that's a very good point, right? And by the way, it is Boehner's a chief culprit here, no doubt about it. But Netanyahu knows better than to agree to this. It's a cheap political ploy, Larry, don't you think?
Exactly, and this is to boost his presence in terms of the election, the upcoming election that he is facing. So it's just shameful that this thing is happening, and I don't know, I'm befuddled.
Well, I would hope, and we got a lot more calls, and we'll take your calls when we come back over the half at 866-55-PRESS. I would just hope that some of the wiser leaders of the Jewish community in the United States would say, Mr. Prime Minister, don't do this. It's wrong. Big mistake.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
same time next week?
Well, of course.
Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Here we go now at 34 minutes after the hour. Susan Page from USA Today, Washington Bureau Chief, had a big interview with former Governor Mike Huckabee this week in USA Today. We'll talk to her about that and other news of the day in the next segment. Right now we're talking about the big flap here in Washington, D.C. at this point. Leader Nancy Pelosi from the House weighed in on this yesterday. She was asked whether it was appropriate for the Speaker of the House to invite the leader of another foreign country to come to this country without consulting the White House and to basically disagree with the President of the United States, to challenge the President of the United States, to rebut the President's State of the Union. In other words, to stick his nose in the middle of American politics.
I don't think that's appropriate for any country, that the head of state would come here within 2 weeks of his own election in his own country.
Yeah. Again, what about, so George Bush wants to take us to Iraq, right? He gives his State of the Union, we're going to invade Iraq, and then whoever the speaker was at the time, right, whether it was Nancy Pelosi or before, or would reach out to, I don't know, the president of France, right, or the Prime Chancellor of Germany, or whatever they say. You know what? Would you come over here and address us and tell us all why George Bush is wrong? I don't think we. By the way, I don't think we would accept that from any other leader.
No.
But Boehner's afraid, I think, in this case, that people will hold back because it's Israel, right? Yeah. No, this is wrong. I don't care who it is. It's wrong. James in Battle Creek, Michigan. Hello, James.
Hello, Bill.
Yeah. What do you think?
For Boehner to do an end run around the president just so he could take a jab at him, it shows not only a total disrespect for the man, Barack Obama, but more so for the office of the presidency.
Yep, absolutely. Well said. Yeah. But, you know, and also, Netanyahu is smart enough. He knows what he's doing by accepting this offer, right?
Yeah, and he should be smart enough to know that he's being used.
Totally. You know, you might say very clever on Boehner's part, right? Petty, cheap, sophomoric, all of those kinds of things also apply. But clever, okay, here's one way, man. Here's one way to embarrass Obama. Let's get Israel. Let's get the prime minister of Israel to come in. So that basically, if what they're saying is, if we don't put tougher sanctions on Iran now, right, then you're anti-Israel. That's also the not so subtle message here, which is horse crap.
I think you really hit on it when you say it reads as petty. D.C. has a lot of pageantry and things like that, which is silly, but there are just some things that just are. And it's tradition that if you're going to invite somebody to speak, you should check with the White House. You should go through these procedures. And the fact that he didn't do that, and he's giving this platform for someone to bash the president and all of that, it doesn't look like he's doing something productive. It looks just petty.
But we have an American political system, right? You got the Democratic Party, you got the Republican Party. You have the leader of the Democratic Party say one thing. If the Republicans or even other Democrats don't like it, then they get up and argue the opposite. That's the way the system works. We don't need any freaking outsider to come in here and take sides. What's that all about, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what? Boehner's such a lightweight, he can't make his own argument? He's got to, and then Bibi letting himself be used by this, big mistake. Tony, out in Chicago. Hi, Tony.
Hi. You know, you reap what you sow, and I'm going to be sophomoric. I wish somebody would, the next time Boehner goes in for his spa treatment, that they turn the machine on high, and he comes out as black as the ace of spades because he is tripping. And that's okay. He gonna get his. That's all. Just wait. My mother always used to say, just keep living and see what's gonna happen.
Yeah. What goes around comes around, right? All right, Tony. I don't know about. I think he already turns the machine up pretty high when he goes in there for the tanning booth. You know, that's why he's as orange as he is. Up in Queens, New York, is this Law? Is that right? Hello?
That is.
Hi.
Yes, it is. I'm here.
All right, how you doing? All right. Oh, nice to talk to you. What do you think?
Oh, I love the last comment. Beautiful. But at the end of the day, people of color, you know, we have different sayings. My grandmother, God rest her soul, she used to say, if the devil bring it, the Lord sent it.
Oh.
And I think that's quite apropos.
In this case, maybe it is, yeah. But you know, it really takes things too far. I think for Boehner to invite and for Bibi and then for Netanyahu to accept. Don't you think, Law?
Well, you know what? I love how Obama is just able to deflect all this crap and kind of brush this crap off his shoulders. I don't even know why he ran for a second term after. Someone supposedly in my ranks and one of my constituents said at a function of the president of the free world, you lie, I would have been done. That would have been it for me because I don't know how he contained himself from, you know.
Yeah, well, he's gotten pretty thick-skinned, I think, in the job. But he did show, I'm really pleased that the White House already said, okay, fine, Bibi, you can come here, but you ain't coming to the White House this time, dude. No. Don't expect any meeting in the Oval Office this time. Yeah, you can sit up in Boehner's office. You guys can drink a lot of Merlot and smoke a lot of cigarettes, but you're not coming to the White House. Out in Ouray, Colorado, Mary, thanks for joining us. What do you say?
Who pays for what's going to be the necessary security and stuff for all this.
You will. You will. I will. Yeah, we all will.
Okay, because I know it would have to be, and it just kind of bothers me why, with what all that goes on too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, look, we want him to be safe when he's here.
Right.
But,
yes, of course.
But they. But the answer to your question is he brings some of his own, but we provide the top Secret Service protection for any foreign leader who comes here. I know members of the Secret Service, several of them friends of mine, and they all get called into overtime hours and everything. I mean, we treat them almost as well as we treat our own president in terms of protecting them while we're here, and that costs a lot of money. And there it is. Joey out in Chicago. Joey, what do you say?
Morning, guys. Yeah, shame on John Boehner for this. I think it might backfire on him. And the regular people.
I would hope so.
And the regular people in America aren't too keen on Benjamin Netanyahu anyway. I think it's the Washington crowd and some people in New York. But the regular people in America really don't care what he has to say that much, Bill. We're America and they're Israel. That's them and us. This is us. So shame on John Boehner, and I would set him up in the Motel 8 down the block there. He can stay at the Motel 8 down there.
Well, I'll tell you, Joey, he's not going to stay. He's not going to stay at the Blair House. No. You come on an official visit, you get to stay at the Blair House. You come with John Boehner. You can bunk out of Boehner's. Boehner's got a house right here on Capitol Hill. About 5 blocks
crash
from
the couch.
Here. Yeah, he can stay on Boehner's couch.
Yeah.
And then they can go to Pete's Diner for breakfast together and go to Alberto's Trattoria. Yeah, take him to Alberto's.
The best of Washington.
Yeah, the worst spaghetti in town. All right. We'll talk more about that with Joe Cirincione just about an hour from now, and get his take on it, too. You're going to hear a lot more about this controversy. Susan Page coming up next, Washington Bureau Chief, USA Today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
14 minutes before the top of the hour on a Friday, January 23rd. I'm telling you, it's worth waiting all week. Don't you think?
Yeah, right.
It is worth waiting all week just to have a chance to talk to Susan Page, Washington Bureau Chief of USA Today. Up early for us again this Friday. Hello, Susan.
Good morning, Bill.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
So anybody who thought and expected to see President Obama get up there depressed, oh, I'm a lame duck, it's kind of all over, congratulations to you guys, you're in charge now, and I'll do anything you want, right? That's not what we saw Tuesday night, is it?
Well, and it wasn't just what was in the script. It was that wonderful unscripted moment.
Yeah.
When he said, I'm not running for office again, and the Republicans applauded, and he came back because I've already,
Right.
won twice.
Because I already beat you twice, right? Yeah, right. I know. No, he was in good form, I thought, rare form, and it was kind of a defiant speech in terms of, and I think, Susan, of course, I'm asking you, but it seems to me that he really kind of changed the agenda with that speech.
Well, he certainly seemed like a guy who'd been liberated by the fact that the midterm election was finally over. Right. I think the White House felt quite constrained because of all those red state Democrats running in for re-election in the Senate. Now, most of them lost, and so that's no longer a concern. And so he's now saying what he wants. And I think he's also basically given up on the idea that he's going to pass big pieces of legislation on these issues. I think it's more about starting a debate, talking about alternatives, laying the groundwork for 2016.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me too that they dropped. I've told the story here on the air that I was at a little briefing at the White House that morning, right? And they were talking middle class economics, and it's the first time I'd ever heard that phrase. And I raised my hand. I said, "So, is the president going to say income inequality?" And they said, "Well, probably not." So they've come up with this new phrase, middle class economics, and that's then they spelled it out in all these different steps. And you're right. I think that's the conversation that he has started.
Do you think income inequality just sounds too leftist for them? It sounds like redistribution of wealth or something.
I don't think people know what it means.
Well, that's possible. But people understand
middle class economics. That means stuff that's going to help the middle class.
Well, also middle class squeeze. That's a word people understand. Things are getting better. Jobs are easier to get. People in the middle class still don't feel like it's really helping them like it should.
Yeah, and so I think that, and I think that debate or conversation he started is going to carry through this session of Congress. Probably not. I agree with you, resulting in a lot of new legislation. But it'll be the conversation, and it'll be the conversation into 2016.
And one thing we shouldn't forget is that big issues take a long time to percolate before they pass. So you need to have a debate about some of these issues for a while before you can have the expectation that people will understand them, support them, elect representatives, tell their representatives to support them, and they come to fruition. I mean, you need to have some. We often have a very short time frame when we talk about politics. The fact is, I think the smartest policymakers often have a very long look out when they start talking about issues like these.
Now, Susan, it was just a couple of months ago that we all got together on a Saturday to talk about issues related to covering the White House and the president and access, and little did we know at the time, Susan, that the way to get an interview with the White House is to fill a bathtub with cereal and milk and jump into it and wear green lipstick.
It's a new age.
Boy, I'll say, I mean, as a veteran journalist, What is your idea? What were they doing at the White House getting these 3 YouTube stars in? They get the prize interviews after the State of the Union.
I think it's an effort.
Not you, not Bill Plant,
right.
Not Major Garrett.
Not Bill Press.
Not Bill Press, right, no.
I don't have any problem with the president taking questions, talking to all kinds of people, including you 2 starbs, none of whom I actually knew who they were until they were had the chance to interview the president. I just think he needs to also talk to the press that covers him every day, knows him best, follows the issues most closely. That's all. So fine to do that in those interviews. I think also important to do interviews with the more traditional press.
Totally, yeah. I mean, if he were doing, recognizing the more, as you say, the veterans, right? The people who do this on a day in and day out basis and who really know the issues and really know, then that's one thing. And then do these other things on the side. But, they love to do the side stuff, but ignore the
it's bad for everybody because he looks, to be perfectly honest, he looks a little silly doing these things. I thought he looked a little silly, with these interviews.
Well, I think they knew the ratings, the number of Americans who actually tuned into the State of the Union was going to be down as it was, lowest level in 15 years for TV, although, we do have lots of other ways to watch now. But I think it's just a way to try to generate some interest and some excitement and also reach younger people. But as I said, I'd like to see the reporters who ask the questions the White House is most likely to not want to get.
Exactly. Now, speaking of very interesting interviews, your latest with Governor Mike Huckabee. You can find it at usatoday.com. Susan Page interviewing Mike Huckabee. What's the one nugget that you got most importantly out of that interview?
Well, first of all, he has Beyonce songs on his iPhone. That's one thing. He's been pretty critical of Beyonce.
I thought he's been slamming her.
I think not the songs that he's been slamming. He's really slamming the Obamas for letting their daughters listen to her, but that wasn't really the biggest news out of this interview. The most interesting thing was he talked about resistance to a Supreme Court decision that recognizes a constitutional right for same-sex marriage. We don't have that decision yet, but we think it may be coming down the pike.
I saw that. What was he really suggesting?
Well, he was saying that states aren't powerless. State governors and state legislatures could take actions that resist and delay allowing same-sex couples to marry. Now, I called the dean of the law school at the University of California, who said that is not actually the case, that the Supreme Court makes a ruling, states don't have any option but to issue licenses. And this law professor likened it to Southern resistance to desegregation orders in the 50s and 60s. But what this told me was this idea that Republicans can back slowly away from the issue of gay marriage because it's a loser for them, that's not going to happen. Huckabee's going to be in there making the case against gay marriage in an aggressive way.
And is he going to run?
Oh, yeah. He's not even coy about it. Yeah. He's going to run. He's going to announce in the spring.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, boy. Okay. Okay, Susan, as always, great to talk to you. Great to get caught up. Good stuff. And good stuff on the Huckabee interview, too. Okay.
Hey, have a good weekend.
All right. You too. Have a good weekend. Susan Page. Check it out. usatoday.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Jonathan Topaz from Politico in studio with us. Top of the next hour, then we'll be joined by Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund.
Bill, never underestimate the ability of Congress to insert themselves into national matters that don't involve politics. We're talking about Benghazi or Deflategate, whichever you'd like to call it.
Yeah.
Senator Dean Heller said yesterday that the NFL should punish the Patriots for deflating the balls. And he says, quote, I'm calling on the NFL to work with the NFL Players Association to restore the credibility of the game before the Super Bowl kicks off. He also points out... Super Bowl, yes, indeed. He also points out that he comes from the only state where sports betting is legal, Nevada, so he has a unique perspective on this.
I was just going to say, what does the senator from Nevada have to do with the Patriots?
Money.
That's what he's talking about. All right, yeah, they sound off about... They'll talk about anything but what they should be talking about.
Exactly.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Okay, friends and neighbors, it's Friday, the day you've been waiting for, Friday, January 23rd. How about it? Good to see you today. Lots to talk about before we head into the weekend. We are here with you, of course, on Free Speech TV, nationwide on the Dish Network and on DirecTV, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV. President Obama back in the White House today after spending 2 days selling his State of the Union package in Boise, Idaho, and Lawrence, Kansas. He comes back to Washington in the middle of a big brouhaha over Bibi. Yes, John Boehner inviting Prime Minister Netanyahu in an outrageous breach of protocol, inviting the Israeli Prime Minister to address a joint session of Congress and to disagree with President Obama, basically to offer a rebuttal to the State of the Union, which is no business of the Israeli prime ministers. He thinks President Obama is wrong to say we should wait to put any more sanctions on Iran until we see how these negotiations work out. If they work out, fine. If they don't, we will slap on more sanctions. We have time to do that. Most Republicans and some Democrats disagree with the president, but for the Israeli prime minister to come here and make that case himself is sticking his nose into American politics where he does not belong. And the White House says, fine, you want to come to Washington to meet with John Boehner? Fine, but you're not coming to the White House, dude. And by the way, I think what they ought to add is, next time you want some money from the United States, ask John Boehner. Don't ask the White House. That's a bad deal for Bibi. I hope he changes his mind. Meanwhile, the Patriots had their big news conference yesterday. Bill Belichick says, "You want to know about those footballs?" Asked Tom Brady. Tom Brady says, "I don't know nothing. But one thing we know is when 11 out of 12 of the footballs were deflated, that's no accident. They cheated." Give us a call about all of the above and more at 866-55-PRESS. Good to have you with us on this Friday morning.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Yep, they cheated, no doubt about it. But Bill Belichick and Tom Brady say they have no idea how 11 out of 12 of the footballs got deflated. You believe that? Got a bridge to sell you. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? It is Friday, January 23rd, The Bill Press Show. Good to see you today, and welcome. Welcome to the program, whether you're listening on your local progressive talk radio station or watching us on Free Speech TV nationwide or worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. We welcome you to the program and our conversation about the news of the day, whether it's happening here in Washington, around the country, or around the globe. We've got it covered, and we want to know what you think about it all. So send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show, on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow, or you can do it the old-fashioned way. Give us a call on our toll-free line at 866-55-PRESS. Lots to talk about today. Let's get right to it. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy leading up Team Press this morning.
Happy Friday, Bill.
Hey, good morning.
Friday. Here we go. Into the weekend. Alicia Cruz, she is standing by to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding is our videographer, keeping us looking good on Free Speech TV and TawkrTV. And we welcome to the program. We talked to a lot of people from Politico. Had Glenn Thrush on yesterday, for example. But the first visit from Politico reporter Jonathan Topaz from Politico. Hey, Jonathan, nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Appreciate it. Thanks very much.
And getting up early, coming across town
Absolutely.
for us. Yeah. You know, the big issue, of course, is, so tell me this, Peter. 11 out of 12 footballs, no accident. No accident, right?
It's really tough to say that that's a coincidence. I think that was planned, yeah.
So it was interesting, the news conference yesterday, right? So Belichick's, were they at the same news conference? They each have their own?
They have their own.
Okay. So
one was earlier in the day, and then Brady's was in the afternoon.
So then they asked Belichick, so what do you know about the air pressure in the balls? And Belichick said, you have to ask Tom.
Yeah.
Because he's the quarterback. He's the one that checks the footballs before the game.
What's funny is Belichick can't help himself, right? Like, all he has to do is go up there and just say, I don't know. I don't handle that. I didn't do it. And after all these questions of him trying to say, he finally just goes, you know what? You have to ask Tom. You have to ask Tom Brady.
So then,
thanks a lot, Coach.
Right. So then they asked Tom. And Tom said, I have no idea. I don't know what happened. Don't ask me, right? That's why they're having an investigation.
Yeah.
He said he checked them and they were fine. And then... yeah.
Who knows?
You know, it's a little unbelievable to think that Tom Brady goes out and he picks the 12 game balls that he wants to use, and then he has no idea what happens to them from there on out. Like, if you're going to go through the process and you're going to care enough about it to go and inspect footballs to select so that you get the ones that you want, and then you have no idea what happens to them after that, I just don't buy it. I also, you know... it's just it's hard for him to back that up, right? For him to just go, I don't know, I just do whatever they give me.
Right. But there is a solution. We found out yesterday, thanks to a sports blogger out in Pittsburgh, Ben Stonium, benstonium.com. There's a solution for teams or for players who want to be sure that they have, let's put it this way, the right equipment.
Oh, no.
Here's what this little spot, you might have seen spots similar to this on television.
You're on your way to the Super Bowl, but does your game still feel a bit flat? Cialis Inflatable helps fill your balls anytime the moment is right. Reach under center with confidence, knowing those balls are full and ready to grab. Before starting Cialis Inflatable, make sure your quarterback actually has balls to inflate. Do not play with deflated balls. Side effects may include inflated ego, swelling or painful sacks, loss of draft picks or hoodie sleeves, and hefty fines. Why let deflated balls hold you back? Give your balls that extra pump for the big game. Ask your equipment manager about Cialis Inflatable and stop f***ing cheating.
I think
it's just about every possible play on words that you could get possible in that spot.
I think half the reason that this thing
clever.
is as big as it is, this whole situation with the Deflategate, is because people love making jokes.
I know about balls.
About balls.
I know. Yeah.
And unfortunately, Brady made it even worse yesterday with, I don't want anybody rubbing them.
Yeah, the Patriots, both Belichick and Brady, they kept stopping themselves from saying balls to correct it to football.
I know. Yeah.
I don't want anybody. I don't know who handles the footballs. I don't know who scuffs up the footballs.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of eclipsed the State of the Union.
Yeah, right.
Today. All right. So, Jonathan Topaz here with us for the first half hour. Joe Cirincione joining us at the half. And Congressman Jared Polis here in studio with us in the next hour. But first,
this
stories
is
of the day.
Full court press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. Let's talk sports, but not football. It's basketball because yesterday the NBA announced the All-Star Game starters. Who made the All-Star list? Number one, getting the most votes ahead of even LeBron James, is Steph Curry from the Golden State Warriors. He was the highest selected. He's going to lead the Western Conference along with Anthony Davis from the Pelicans, Mark Gasol from the Grizzlies, Blake Griffin from the Clippers, and Kobe Bryant from the Lakers. The Eastern Conference will be led by LeBron James, also Carmelo Anthony, Paul Gasol from the Bulls, Raptors point guard Kyle Lowry, and from right here in Washington, D.C., John Wall from the Wizards. Representing for the Eastern Conference All-Stars.
When is the game?
Let me find out the date. I got it in this story somewhere. I'll let you know what it is.
Okay. That's right. I won't be there anyhow.
Yeah, you're not going to go anyway. How about instead of Cheetos, they're called Sweetos. Cheetos is unveiling a new snack called Sweetos. They're not going to be covered in cheese like the Cheetos are. They're going to be covered in cinnamon sugar. They will hit shelves. The snacks will hit shelves at the end of February. So there you go.
Well, we need another snack, right?
Another sugary snack. All right, I don't advocate that you do this, but you're now allowed to do this. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit has ruled that it is legal to flip off a police officer.
Oh, I wouldn't try it.
I wouldn't try it. I don't advocate that you try it, but it is legal.
They're saying like freedom of speech?
Freedom of speech. They said that this gesture of insult is not the basis for a reasonable suspicion of a traffic violation or impending criminal activity. The story comes from a situation in New York where a man flipped off a police officer who was using a radar device at an intersection in New York, and the police officer pulled him over and charged him with disorderly conduct. And the court says you can't, that's not disorderly conduct for flipping the bird. So, again, you're welcome to try. I'm not. But if you feel like that's something you want.
So when you get pulled over for eating your cheeseburger, you can then
give them the bird.
Use some nonverbal communication.
Good luck with that. Let me know how that goes.
Yeah. I like you. I'm going to take the safe way out, right? You got it. Thank you, Peter. So, Jonathan, we heard this phrase for the first time, middle-class economics, sort of replacing the phrase income inequality.
Right.
You were live blogging the State of the Union. What was the reaction to Politico's readers or listeners or viewers or whatever to the speech?
I think it depends from what part of the political spectrum. This is a president who was extremely confident, self-assured. His detractors might say cocky. And in some ways it was, even though towards the end there was a lot of appeal to unity, the first hour or the first 45 minutes or so was quite partisan. It was a almost boastful speech about what the last 6 years of economic recovery has been. This is a president who's a little jazzed up and, one or two ad-libs jabbing at Republicans. And so I think your response kind of depended on where your political leanings were. Liberals were pretty thrilled that he was taking credit, that he was very confident. Conservatives only had more ammunition for a president that they often see as being cocky, a bit aloof, very self-satisfied. So I think it kind of depends where you fell along.
But I thought the speech was very well put together in the sense that he, as you said, said, look, we've made a lot of progress, guys. You know, remember he used that, he ad-libbed that phrase, that's good news, people.
Right.
You know, there may be a lot of progress. He always adds the caveat, which is true. There's still a lot of people who haven't benefited yet, right, from the recovery.
Right.
But we have made a lot of progress. You cannot deny the facts on that. And so now we're in a good position to write our own future, to use his phrase. And here's what I think our priorities ought to be in writing our own future. Middle class, I call it middle class economics. And here's what I mean. Boom, 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 boom. You know, so I thought it was very well structured. And a challenge to that Congress, now Republican-controlled Congress, if you've got any better ideas, bring them to me. But here's where I think we ought to start.
Right. Well, listen, Republicans...
And if I just add one other thing. And they weren't like crazy. You know, I mean, probably the boldest one was the tax code revisions.
Right.
Followed by 2 years of free community college. But 2 years of free community college, I mean, I think it's a great idea. It's new, but it's not insane. You know, it's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's a non-starter with the Republican Congress. Look, I mean, I think what's clear is that Republicans, right after the midterm elections, thought that this would be a president who would acknowledge those results and retreat.
Right.
And what he's done since then, I think, has really caught Republicans a little flat-footed in that he has not really acknowledged the midterm results. He took tons of executive action in the past several months, whether it's on immigration, Cuba, the climate deal with China, and he's also gotten some fairly nice results from the economy, and his approval ratings are higher than they've been in a long time. This is a Republican Party that thought that this is their time to be on the offensive. And the president, whether it's because he doesn't want to be seen as a lame duck or whether because he's, feeling a little bit more relaxed because there are no more elections in his sight, he's not going to play by that narrative. And both teams are on offense right now, and that can be tricky sometimes.
Right. Susan Page from USA Today in the last hour used the phrase, the word liberated. And he did. Yeah. He does seem to be liberated. If you look at since the midterms, right, he went off on a trip to Asia, signed the climate deal with China, went down to Australia and announced $3 billion into this UN fund for climate change for developing nations. He came back, signed the 2 executive orders on immigration reform, and then he comes in front of the State of the Union and lays out this with the exception of the Fast Track Authority, basically, as I said yesterday, a progressive agenda. You could have thought Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders were giving that speech almost.
Yeah, I mean, people definitely were saying stuff like that. There's a moment in which Elizabeth Warren got up out of her chair and was standing and clapping pretty vigorously when he mentioned the line about vetoes. I mean, this is you could see it on his face. I wrote that, covering that. You could see on his face he was the loosest I've ever seen him at a State of the Union address. Yeah. Feeling very confident. I mean, this is someone who doesn't take the Republican threats seriously anymore about executive action, I think, because in his mind, they haven't worked with him for 6 years. So this notion that by him taking executive action, he's poisoning the well, I don't think he cares anymore.
But, I think, and Peter I don't know whether my column has gone out today, but
not yet. But it's
my column today for the Chicago Tribune, where I make the point. I think what the president has effectively done is changed the conversation and set the agenda for the next 2 years through the midterm elections. And I thought it was interesting that in his remarks in front of the Republican National Committee in San Diego, Mitt Romney talked about income inequality. Yeah. And we have to help the poor. Jeb Bush starts a new PAC, and Jeb Bush says the purpose of this PAC is to try to make sure that all Americans have an opportunity, not just the top 1%. So they're almost they have different ways of getting there, but they're almost talking Obama's language now. I mean, this middle class, whether you call it income inequality or middle class economics or middle class squeeze or something, I think that's the agenda and the conversation.
Yeah, well, they don't agree. They obviously don't agree how to get there.
No, exactly.
But
the fact they're talking about it.
Well, because growth is better now, and the problem remains with the recovery. The problem is wage stagnation, and so there's an idea that they and Republicans are being savvy about this. They have identified the correct problem, which is that the wages still are very stagnant. I think the president maybe was a little overly aggressive when he said that wages are on the way up. We'll see.
They went up a tiny,
right? Yeah,
right.
So I think it's a savvy move by Republicans who have been accused for, particularly someone like Mitt Romney, Jeb Bush, have been accused for being out of touch. They understand that wage stagnation is a problem. They obviously disagree on how to get there. By the way, the other thing about the State of the Union is that, as you said, it's a nice laundry list, but the thing that has the best chance of getting done is free trade, which is the only priority that the president and congressional Republicans agree on. So it was a nice speech by a liberated president. It's free community college is going to get done. Is this middle class tax? It's not going to get done.
But I would argue that was not his purpose.
Right,
his purpose was just not to lay some proposals in front of Congress that he knew was not going to get passed. His purpose was to change the conversation, and to focus on the middle class. And I think he successfully did that, based on the way we even see some Republicans talking. Now, Jonathan Topaz with us from Politico. And we want to talk on the political front. Very interesting. Mitt Romney and Jeb Bush meeting for lunch.
Right.
What are they talking about? Jonathan's got it covered 2016. We'll be right back. You want to join the conversation? 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund in the next half hour here in studio with us. Right now we're visiting with Jonathan Topaz, political reporter for Politico. So Mitt Romney and Jeb Bush get together yesterday in Salt Lake City for lunch. Which one dropped out?
I wouldn't count on either just yet. Yeah, I mean, this was a lunch that was arranged before Mitt Romney made some serious overtures about getting into the race. To be a fly on the wall, I guess. I mean, there's some clearing of the air that needs to be done between these guys, and I think the big story is that establishment donors in the Republican Party are concerned that these guys are both going to make a run for it, and that the establishment wants to get behind one candidate, whether it's Romney, Bush, Christie. It remains to be seen exactly what Romney's going to do, exactly what Jeb's going to do. But there's some concern in the establishment wing of the party that these guys are going to go at it.
And very quickly, Steve King has his Iowa Freedom Summit this weekend.
That's right. Yeah. For the other wing of the party, the conservative wing of the party. Yeah, Democrats are having a little fun with this. So Steve King, maybe the most outspoken critic of immigration reform, the Iowa Congressman, a lot of presidential hopefuls going to Des Moines for his Freedom Summit, his first ever, and I believe it's Chris Christie, Rick Santorum, Carly Fiorina. This is something of a rainmaker in Iowa who's going to be a problem.
It's the clown show in Iowa this weekend, I think. But it'll be fun to watch. Hey, Jonathan, good to have you in. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Come back again. All right, talk to you soon. Joe Cirincione joining us next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, you bet it is. 33 minutes after the hour now, The Bill Press Show coming to you live from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. And our studio on Capitol Hill, just down the street from the United States Capitol building, where we are brought to you today by the American Federation of Government Employees, the good men and women who staff all the federal agencies here in Washington and around the country. Members of the AFGE under President J. David Cox, proud to work for America every day, and we salute their good work. And you can check it out at their website, afge.org. I'm telling you, foreign policy dominating the news today for sure. What a great day to have Joe Cirincione, our friend from the Ploughshares Fund, here in studio with us. Hello, Joe.
Good morning, Bill. Great to be here.
Great to see you, too. We have so much to talk about.
Let's go.
But first we have a very important thing we have to do. Which is inform our viewers and inform our listeners and ask you all to join us in congratulating the award-winning producer, Joe Cirincione.
Oh, you saw that.
The LA Times has a whole big write-up.
Peter, let's talk about this now.
I'm just nominated.
He's just nominated. The Los Angeles Drama Critic Circle announced nomination for excellence in theater for Los Angeles, and one of the people nominated is sitting right here.
It's hard to believe, isn't it?
Congratulations, Joe.
I thank you very much.
From
I'm
one
very
producer
proud of
to
this.
another.
The LA Critics Circle Award.
For what?
Well, I helped produce a play that my niece is in called One in the Chamber. It's about the tragedies of gun deaths. Brilliant little play produced in LA, and it's nominated for one of the awards, one of 5 plays up for their most prestigious award they offer.
Well, now, I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA. Can I vote for you?
That's a good point.
I don't know. This is the drama critics, so I don't know. I don't know if you get a vote.
Oh, I see.
Now, you can still try and bribe him if you want. He just might not.
Are you going to the awards ceremony?
I'm going to LA next week, as a matter of fact.
And who are you going to wear?
I've always wanted an Armani. I've never been able to afford one. Maybe I'll spring for one.
So if the Armani folks are listening.
Joe has so many lives and wears so many hats. It's just hard to keep up with him, to keep us busy. All right. I want to start with the fact that the president has one view about sanctions in Iran. Some Republicans and Bob Menendez have another view. And the president put his view in front of Congress. And John Boehner says we need to hear the other side. And so I've invited the Prime Minister of Israel to come in and give the other side in front of a joint session of Congress, basically saying the president is wrong. Is this appropriate?
It's absolutely not appropriate. It is wrong on so many levels. If there was any doubt, this has completely exposed the real intent of the Iran debate. It's not about foreign policy. It's about politics and power. And here's the Speaker of the House not telling the President about this, not telling the Democrats about this, clearly inviting the leader of a foreign country to come here and attack his own president, to undermine the president. This is a bald political move, and Netanyahu is a willing participant.
Why is Netanyahu doing this?
Well, he's doing this because he's in a tight election. Right now, he's losing the race for prime minister. And
does this help him to come here and attack Obama?
It's a prestigious post to be seen
addressing
So basically, Banya is allowing Netanyahu to use the U.S. Congress as a background prop for his talk. By the way, the same disgraceful way the Republicans used the Senate Armed Services Committee as a background prop for their reply to the President's State of the Union. First time that has ever been done. So you see how the Republicans are using the Congress for their own narrow party advantage, not putting country first. And Netanyahu also wants to attack the President because he doesn't want to stop settlements. He doesn't want to have peace talks with the Palestinians, and he does indeed oppose the policy on Iran, and he wants to.
He basically wants us to go to war against Iran.
He does. He wants us to militarily attack Iran. He wants us to start the war that he doesn't actually want to start. So this is an unprecedented level of meddling by a foreign leader in the internal policy of the United States and by the leader of a Congress attacking the leader of the opposition party.
President Obama says, fine, if you come here, I'm not meeting with you at the White House.
Right, so he's stiffing Netanyahu, and this is appropriate. I mean, this is a long-standing policy. You don't play in the politics of other countries. So we don't want to meddle in the internal electoral politics of Israel. So the Secretary of State's not going to meet with them. The President's not going to meet with them. And, of course, they're totally pissed that Netanyahu is doing this with Banya.
Now, two other factors on this. Number one, Senator Bob Menendez, chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Yeah. By the way, just as an aside, you don't have to comment. What I don't get is he's wrong on Cuba. Yeah. He's wrong on Iran. Why the hell is he the chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee?
Yeah.
Harry Reid, you ought to dump this guy. But anyway, Menendez said yesterday that every time he hears the president talk about Iran, he thinks he believes, it sounds to him like he's using talking points from Tehran.
Yes. This was worse than anything a Republican said to him.
Exactly.
This was
to me, that is
low.
treason. You're accusing your president of being an agent of a tool of the Ayatollah.
Yeah.
That is really over the line.
It is outrageous. I saw this while it was happening. I was watching the hearing, and it's said in this arrogant, condescending way to Tony Blinken, one of the most talented public servants we have, now the Deputy Secretary of State, who handled himself brilliantly, by the way, and did an excellent job laying out the administration's position. And Menendez, I think he's just gone off the rails on this and on Cuba. He's making a break. I frankly wouldn't be surprised if he decided to jump parties. He's certainly acting more Republican than Democrat.
So the president, and I've heard the president explain this several times, not just in the State of the Union, at the White House, he's talked to us about it. His belief is we have the strongest sanctions on Iran right now.
Yeah.
We're in these very, very tough, delicate, tense negotiations right now, and we've made a lot of progress.
Yeah.
And these negotiations could go the right way. And if they do, we're really in good shape. If we don't, then we'll slap some more sanctions on them. So he says it's the timing that's off right now. Right. What's wrong with that?
Right. No, that is exactly the right line. And when you ask seasoned national security, international security experts, that is exactly the answer you get. Obama is not pursuing a political line here. This is the internationally verified way to go. Who should you ask? Well, while Menendez was pontificating in one hearing room, a couple of doors down in the Senate Armed Services Committee, Zbigniew Brzezinski and Brent Scowcroft were being asked these same questions by John McCain and Lindsey Graham, and they said, and Scowcroft gave the best answer, what's the alternative to these negotiations? If you slap sanctions on now, you kill the talks, then what? Do you go to war? And then not just that, yesterday in the Washington Post, the foreign ministers of our close allies, Great Britain, France, Germany, the European Union, all begged for time, begged the Republicans not to kill the talks.
Okay.
This is the international consensus. The Congress is way out of step.
And one final point on this. John Kerry was asked about this, and John Kerry said, gee, that's interesting because I'm not going to name names, but he said, I was told by 2 top officials of the Mossad that if you, and he said they said this in a meeting, it was a private meeting, but in a meeting with other world leaders or representatives of all of our allies in Geneva, I guess, that the people from Mossad said, if you put more sanctions, if the U.S. were to do this right now, it would be like throwing a hand grenade into the room, and it would totally destroy the talks. And other people have confirmed that this is what Israel's intelligence agency is saying.
Yes.
So, again, where's Netanyahu coming off here?
There has long been a split between Netanyahu and the intelligence and security leadership of Iran. They disagree. They don't think the Iran program is racing ahead, as Netanyahu has been warning for over 10 years. They don't think that a military attack is the way to solve this. They think that a deal might actually work, and you saw that reflected in his remarks. He was later forced to issue a clarification. The Israeli embassy clarified his remarks a bit, but there's no doubt, according to every speaker who was there, that this is indeed what the head of Mossad said.
We have a new king of Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
What is this? Does this change anything in the equation in the Middle East, or our relationship, or?
Not much. It produces a small element of uncertainty. The Crown Prince Salman will now accede to the throne. The king who just died was 90 years old. The Crown Prince is almost 80 years old. I mean, this is clearly a very senior regime here, and the Crown Prince has been the governor of Riyadh for over 50 years. Has been in effect governing the country for the last 4 or 5. So he's don't expect much change at all. The man next in line, the man who now becomes Crown Prince, is almost 70 years old, and he's considered a youngster. So any retirees listening to this show, move to Saudi Arabia. There's a new career awaiting you.
We also have a new government in Yemen.
Yes, this is more serious. So,
do we have
not? The existing government has resigned.
Right.
Just yesterday, but the palace was surrounded by a rebel force. They're called the Houthis. The Houthis is basically a Sunni, rather Shia-dominated force representing the half of the country that's Shia, and they've been charging this government, correctly, by the way, with corruption and poor governance, but the tactics they've used have been military, surround the palace, take the chief of staff hostage. The president yesterday decided, okay, look, I quit.
Yeah.
You take it over. It's unclear. And the Houthis had said they didn't want to take it over, but then they changed their position. What does this mean? We may see a collapse of the government completely, to be seen. We most likely will see a split in Yemen. You remember the days when there was a North Yemen and a South Yemen, largely along ethnic lines. The Sunnis dominate the south, the Shia dominate the north. We may see that split again. The one good news here, the Houthis, they're sworn enemies of al-Qaeda in Yemen, which are basically Sunni-based, and they've been fighting them. And those are the people responsible for the attack on the satirical magazine in Paris.
Yeah.
And there may be some good news here. You may see actually the Yemen government fighting the al-Qaeda in Yemen more fiercely than they have been.
The AQAP, I guess is what they are, right?
Yes.
Yeah. We've got it covered, and still a lot more to go here. Hotspot, foreign policy hotspot with Joe Cirincione. We'll take a quick break and then come right back. If you want to jump in the conversation, you know how to do it. 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
I'm the retired bishop with the Episcopal Church as the bishop for all chaplains in federal service. I read that there was a group of people that represented a sense of injustice that I had. We'd lost Zuccotti. I mean, there was a kind of a hope that maybe Trinity Church would be gracious and give refuge. We picked this day where we would gather and demonstrate that Trinity was closing its ears to what was happening. We marched around the block, and I realized that, my goodness, they're carrying a ladder. And I thought, well, this is the moment. You could feel a spiritual presence. You could feel a certain something. And then the cops came in. It got brutal.
I'm with you right here. Robin, I'm here.
The church needed, in this moment in history, to stand alongside of these protesters. The truth of Christ is found in the pews, is found in the institutional church, but it is also found in the streets. It's found in the honesty and the integrity, the insistence of people that you find in Occupy Wall Street.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
I know it's been a great
on your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
12 minutes before the top of the hour. Not enough time for all the world's hot spots, but we'll get them in as many as we can here with Joe Cirincione from the Ploughshares Fund, ploughshares.org. It's the old English spelling, P-L-O-U-G-H, ploughshares.org. The president, in his State of the Union, Joe, went out of his way to present again and reaffirm his commitment to change our policy toward Cuba.
Yes.
No doubt about it. Right?
It is happening, and it's happening now. It's happening this week. U.S. officials are in Cuba talking to the Cubans and trying to hammer out the exact details of how the pacing of the normalization, what exactly would take place, the opening of embassies in each other's country, the allowing of commercial air flights, etc. All that appears to be going very well. The early reports are that the talks are proceeding smoothly.
And the Cubans have followed through on their end of the deal. They released the 53 prisoners a week or so ago, right?
Yes,
which was part of.
You remember the criticism from when he was announced that nobody's gotten released. No, just take a breath.
Yeah, right.
It's all going to work out, and we've had 53 what we considered political prisoners released by Cuba.
We identified them and said these are people who have no other reason to be in prison. You really should let them go.
So their lives are immediately better.
Right. And so how long before we see just lifting, so you can just hop a flight to Cuba, you don't have to go through it. They ease the restrictions a lot, but you still can't go like just as a tourist, like you could go to Mexico or something.
Well, it's I've been to Cuba twice. My friend was stationed at the Cuban intersection, and his family and my family grew up together. So we We went down, and it's a beautiful country. People should go. Wait till they see Cuba.
I've been once, and I'm going again in May.
Wait till you see this place. So go. Already they've broadened it up and allowed many more reasons for going. That border just plain tourism, but you have to go on a charter flight.
Yeah.
So if you want to go to Cuba now, you can basically go. You just have to do by charter. I expect we're going to have commercial airline service by the end of this year, just as soon as the mechanics are worked out, so you can fly an American airline flight from Boston to Havana. It is going to happen. You are going to see this probably this year.
You know, we are going in May with the Nation magazine, and the flight is from Tampa. It's an hour from Tampa.
Yeah. It's
like flying to Providence, Rhode Island.
It won't be long before we have hydrofalls leaving Miami.
Key West.
Key West.
There'll be a
it's
ferry,
90
there'll
miles,
be a ferry
man.
from Key West.
You could do this. You could totally do this.
Right.
And the people are so happy. You see the TV coverage now. The people in Cuba are happy. Because the Americans who are there are happy. I mean, it shows what happens when the governments just get out of the way and let people exchange with people.
Amen. Now, the other surprise to me in the State of the Union, and we talked about this before, that here we are at war against ISIS, and there's no declaration of war, and there's no authorization, and the president has been saying, well, I have all the authorization I need from the old September 11 AUMF. If you want to send a new one, that's fine, but I don't really need it. In the State of the Union, he said, I want a new AUMF.
Yes, blessing it, going ahead with the process. And, of course, you've been saying this for months, this is what we need, and I agree with you. And responsible members of Congress have been saying it, but nothing's moved. So maybe finally we'll start to get some legal authority to the military actions that we're taking in the Middle East.
And finally get some legal underpinning for a war that's been underway for 8 months or whatever. But it is
since March of last year.
Was that long ago?
That long ago we started.
All right, almost a year.
Yeah.
So, but it is important for Congress to agree to step up here and do the right thing and exercise their authority.
You see, now, Majority Leader Boehner might Speaker of the House Boehner might learn from this.
Boehner.
Boehner, sorry. This is what you're supposed to be doing. This is the role of the Constitution prescribes for Congress. You get to authorize war. You do not run the foreign policy of the United States. The Constitution gives that to another branch. So just open up the little book you carry around with you and check some of those amendments.
All right. So the next time we see you, are you going to wear your award from the from LA Drama Critics?
There's actually a lot of stiff competition. This play, One in the Chamber, is an independent production. Young actresses, including my niece Emily Peck. So we'll see how they do against the more seasoned, established veteran actors in plays.
Good luck, dude. That's awesome. No, that's awesome.
Yeah,
love the underdog.
So I have to stop and think now. Anybody I know in LA, who having lived there so long, who might have a vote, right?
Well, this play may come.
Lobbying.
Thank you very much. And this play may be coming to Washington. They want to produce it here. It's a very touching, moving play about the tragedy of gun violence. So if it does, I'll let you know.
No, if it does, you come in with your niece and the cast, and we'll have a little, little show here on the whole
Deal.
thing.
Totally. Yeah. Deal.
Absolutely. All right, Joe Cirincione. I feel so much better about the world now that you've been in. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Bill.
All right.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I know it's been a great show so far. The first 2 hours, hour number 3 coming up, and you ask yourself, could it possibly get any better? Yes, it could. John Nichols from The Nation joins us at the top of our third hour today, and then Congressman Jared Polis, very, very progressive, great new congressman from Colorado, joins us in studio at the half. So if you're watching on Free Speech TV, you have to wait until 5 p.m. Eastern, or you can just jump over to our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV, and watch us next live. Hour number 3 coming up.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
Would you like it back?
what do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like it back?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, two great guests in the next hour. John Nichols from The Nation magazine, and then we'll be joined by Congressman Jared Polis from Colorado, represents the Boulder area of Colorado. President Obama back at the White House today. Gets a daily briefing this morning, and then this afternoon, he's going to welcome a whole gang of the nation's mayors who are here in town for the annual Mayors Conference, a U.S. Conference of Mayors. They're coming in to the White House, and the President will be speaking to them at 4:45 p.m. this afternoon in the East Room of the White House. And we have our regular press briefing with Josh Earnest today, the first briefing of the week at noon. We'll be back with John Nichols from The Nation.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Here reporting from Houston, Texas for Climate Desk. Now, one of the biggest uncertainties in climate science right now is the role of clouds. What better way to work that part out than flying right through them? That's what NASA scientists aboard this airplane think. Welcome to NASA's biggest airborne laboratory. You're coming with us today on an 8-hour NASA flight mission.
When you read these big IPCC climate assessments, what's the biggest uncertainty? There's two, right? The role of aerosols and clouds. Clouds is probably bigger than aerosols.
That is a piece of a puzzle that right now we are missing.
You can't get the models right if you don't understand the chemistry and the process.
Now we're being told we've got to get on. The doors are about to shut, so let's go aboard. Every time you turn on the weather, every time you hear a climate change prediction, that information has to come from somewhere. And it starts by getting sucked out of the air from planes like this.
So this mission is to particularly try to understand the emissions from the surface, so mostly biogenic emissions. So from trees and other plants.
Right now we're flying to our very first part of this experiment on the DC-8. Over Arkansas, there's a particularly pungent bouquet of emissions that scientists are interested in measuring.
Well, these emissions lead to both aerosols and to molecules that both destroy and create ozone. So these are very important things to understand for climate studies.
How it will manifest itself, it will be in more accurate and more reliable predictions.
So what we're doing is taking a series of flyovers, each at a different level of the atmosphere, scooping up those emissions, testing them, and hopefully scientists are going to see exactly what's in this column of air all the way up.
The data that we collect in one flight can keep busy 60 scientists and students for 3 years, 4 years. We're still studying data from data collected 20 years ago.
In fact, this particular mission today is its most heavily equipped in its nearly 30 years of service. Each one of these consoles here is a specially equipped scientific instrument designed to collect all sorts of different data in real time.
And this instrument here tracks the sun.
We're looking at mist chambers. They're used to strip soluble gases.
This black line is the CO2. It's about 390 ppm right now.
We're putting these filters in the bags that we've got the aerosols that we trapped out of a certain amount of air. And so we're sampling up here about 150 liters a minute.
That ultimately flows back into the operational models. It flows back into what goes on TV every day.
Anyway, I got to get this sample going.
You do it. It's a busy man at work. We can't let him rest. Well, get this. We've just spent 2 hours crisscrossing this one cloud formation. In, back out again, back in again.
Then they grow, and we track them as long as we can, and then we let it go.
Even one cloud can hold a host of answers to the mysteries of climate change.
The patterns of, where the clouds are, what type of clouds we see, what kind of weather systems they're associated with it, that'll all be shifting in a shifting climate, in a world with climate change.
Then the big spark is this, is when we actually get the meat on the grill. And then it will be some time to process it.
The most important issue on this planet right now is to protect and conserve biodiversity in the world's oceans. And I don't think people realize just how intimate our connection is with the oceans themselves. Not only do they provide the very foundation of life and control our weather, but life just simply could not exist without a healthy ocean. The real problem, though, is apathy. It's all out of sight, it's all out of mind, and people don't even think about it. But it doesn't matter whether you live in Peoria or on the coast. The fact is, whatever happens in the ocean affects all life forms on the planet Earth. If the oceans die, then civilization collapses. We all die. We cannot live on this planet without the oceans. This is, in fact, not the planet Earth. It's the planet ocean, but because we're a land-dwelling species, we refer to it as Earth. But it is the planet ocean, and the oceans are the heart and the foundation of all life on the planet.
What the frack? What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
On your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
They cheated. We know they cheated because nobody will fess up to exactly who did it or how. Belichick says, ask Tom. Tom says, I don't know, nothing. Hello, everybody. What do you say? Deflategate rolls on. And so does the Bill Press Show. Hour number 3 here on a Friday, January 23rd. So good to have you with us. And, of course, we are there with you on your local progressive talk radio station nationwide. Happy to have you and join you in Radioland today. Also there with you on Free Speech TV and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Coming to you live from Washington, D.C. President Obama. Congress is out of town. Congress, they only, at best, work 3.5 days a week, usually just 3. But the president's in town, and he's meeting with the nation's mayors today, the U.S. Conference of Mayors in town, and he'll be welcoming them to the White House this afternoon at about 4:45. Here in studio, we got the whole team assembled this morning. Peter Ogburn and Elisa Murphy.
Hello, Bill.
Hey, happy Friday.
Happy Friday, indeed. There's no such thing as a bad Friday.
No.
Alicia Cruz has got the phones covered. Give her a call at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding on the cameras and the lights, the videographer, Cyprian Bolding, good job as always. Still a lot of reaction to the State of the Union. And as we have talked here, the surprising thing was that President Obama came out. If anybody thought he was going to come out with his head hung low and his tail between his legs, they were wrong. As Larry Wilmore, by the way, he is coming on strong.
Oh, he's so good.
He is so good. He pointed out on his show last night, if you were expecting that, you didn't know the real Obama.
Hold on a second. Doesn't he realize he just lost an historic election? I mean, both houses by historic margins? Even his own party was deserting him. I mean, doesn't Obama know he won't be able to get anything done in his last 2 years? What? Oh, he doesn't give a
That's what it is. Yeah, he did. Acted like he'd been liberated. All right. Big hour here together in this final hour with starting off with John Nichols from The Nation magazine, joined a little bit later by Congressman Jared Polis from Colorado. But let's get right to it. John Nichols, how are you, man? Washington correspondent for The Nation. Hey.
I'm fabulous, Bill. It's great to be with you.
Great to be with you. We all want to send you a great big thank for your recognition of our little program in last week's edition of The Nation, rating us as the top progressive morning show. Thank you, sir and friend.
It was no burden at all, and I do that. I wish I could tell you I just did it out of the out of my pocket, but. I actually do it in consultation with a lot of other folks. I talk to a lot of folks, and what the feeling is, and I'm not. We can do this for 1 second, so don't get too big.
All right. Yeah, I was going to say.
But what the feeling is that in the morning across this country, it's when most people get their information. They figure out, kind of how to set their day. You really do need smart, but not boring, talk about what's going on. And for the last few years, you've hit a good mark, and you ought to be proud of it.
Oh, well, thank you so much. We are proud of it, and we do have a lot of fun doing it as well. So, John, you, like I, watching the President's State of the Union speech, there were times if I closed my eyes, I might have thought it was Elizabeth Warren or Bernie Sanders giving that speech.
Well, I noticed that the TV cameras could not resist Elizabeth Warren.
Right.
In fact, they kept going back to her on a regular basis. Now, that's an important thing because there's probably no greater democracy in America than who the State of the Union cameras go to when they're not going to the president.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
By the nature of it, they'll go a little to the first lady. They'll certainly give you every bit of John Boehner's pain. But
yes.
they will also grab people out of the audience. And it was clear there was a statement there. They kept going to Elizabeth Warren. Why? Because it's not just she's an interesting political player. She has scoped out an argument that the Democratic Party has to be about more than mere partisanship. It has to be about more than we're not the Republicans. There has to be a frame, a theme, an ideology, if you will. And Obama gave a great speech on Tuesday night. Not a perfect speech. There were things I disagreed with. But he gave a great speech because it was ideological.
Yes. And this new phrase that they coined, at least I had never heard it before, and I've told this story so many times, but I was in a little briefing at the White House Tuesday morning before the speech, and with a couple of the top advisors, and they were telling us what we could expect to hear. And suddenly I noticed that one of them used this phrase, middle-class economics, and I went, that's
interesting.
Yeah. And then they used it again. And so I raised my hand and I said, I know what you're talking about, but is the president, I asked this question, I said, is the president going to use the phrase income inequality tonight? And they said, probably not. In other words, they've replaced that with this middle-class economics, which I think is a great capture of what the whole agenda was all about.
Well, it's a smart political strategy. Now, here's where I come at on this thing. I always wish that we would use the term working class, and I would love
that's good.
Expanded the term working class out to mean basically anybody who's ever worried about losing their job or not making ends meet, or in any way has a little vulnerability, right?
Yes.
And they don't like working class as much because somehow, in the view of a lot of the political wordsmiths, they think that doesn't quite include professionals and maybe, radio talk show hosts or something. and so they've gone for this term middle class, and I've always been a little bit shaky on it, a little uncomfortable, except how they are now explaining it, which is fascinating. They are linking this concept of middle class, which is most everybody thinks they're in the middle class, with vulnerability. And so when they talk about middle class economics, what they're really saying is, look, we have to do certain things so that the great mass of Americans who are either in the middle class or near it can be there, can aspire to it, can achieve it, can maintain it. And that government, and I know it's a horrible word, government has a role in that task.
Sure.
Now, this is a big deal because this is Roosevelt-type stuff. Now, I'm not going to compare Obama's really relatively modest proposals to what FDR was putting forward, but the concept, framing out the idea that we're in a moment where government can make choices, take steps that will decide whether the great mass of Americans are relatively comfortably in the middle class or whether they are struggling. That's a big deal, and it's, I'm constantly amused by the people who say to us, oh, well, it's, Obama, Democrats, they lost the midterms. This is, they really ought to just do nothing here. Mitch McConnell said, well, he has a choice. He can either keep campaigning or he can come up here and make some agreements with us. Well, let's hope he keeps campaigning, because the thing that you can do, even after losing midterms, is to frame the debate.
Right.
And if you do it well enough, you start winning some legislative measures. You start winning in the regulatory zone, as I hope happens with the FCC, and you start winning at the state and local levels and framing out the next election. You know who did this? Presidents who had suffered bigger setbacks than Obama has. Franklin Roosevelt after 1938, Dwight Eisenhower after 1958, Ronald Reagan after 1986. All of these presidents suffered bigger setbacks and turned around and governed.
But I love the framing the debate. I believe because he framed the debate not just for this next 2 years of Congress. I mean, he was going far beyond that. He framed the debate all the way through 2016 and beyond. I mean, it seems to me from right now the question in front of every candidate is, who do you stand for? Do you stand for the 1% or the 99%? Right?
And to have a president go in on that, not do the sort of, again, you always know the president's given a good speech if the Republican leaders in Congress, his critics, say that he practiced class warfare. If he did, that honestly, that is that they don't know it, but that is their absolute confirmation that Obama gave a good speech. Because if they say, well, he's just doing class warfare, he's just trying to divide us, right? They're acknowledging that he hit a mark. And if he keeps hitting that mark for 2 years, let me assure you, the American discourse will be different and better.
Totally. And, what gets me is, let's just take two of those planks, right? Raising the minimum wage, which we've talked about so many times. 70% of the American people, blue states, red states, it doesn't matter, support that. And then
53% are Republicans.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. And these Republicans in Congress, won't even consider it. Free community college, 2 years of free community college. I saw Huffington Post just did a poll. 60% of people across the country support that. And you won't get any support at all from these Republicans in Congress. They are so divorced. Funny, they're divorced from reality, John,
I'm going to correct you, Bill. You're wrong.
Okay.
He's going to get something.
Do you on that?
Quietly, on the minimum wage especially. This week, quietly, Mitch McConnell met with top Republicans, and they discussed the absolute need for them to figure out some steps they can take on income inequality, because their polling shows it has become such a serious issue for them.
Interesting. Yeah.
And so I don't think you're going to get a $12.50 or $15 minimum wage out of this Congress. But I genuinely believe that for purely political reasons, the minimum wage might well be within the realm of possibility. And this is one of the reasons why President Obama needs to be very, very strong. Framing the debate for 2016 is vitally important. It's definitional, but that does not mean that you can't push the limits out far enough as regards to discourse that you can start to achieve incremental progress even in this difficult time. It would be absurd. It would be absurd to think that you can't pressure these Republicans on at least a couple of issues. And my gut is that the minimum wage is one they might like to give a little bit of movement on, because that allows them politically to counter the argument that they've done nothing.
Right. Well, absolutely. It would really, really be smart. I just I saw Scott Pelley interviewing Boehner and McConnell side by side last night for 60 Minutes. And when the minimum wage came up, Boehner just said flat out, absolutely not, no way, no how, bad idea, boom, boom, boom. And McConnell didn't say anything. So maybe Maybe that's an insight there, right?
Well, I could well be wrong on this. I'm just telling you that that there were meetings and discussions, and where those take us, God knows.
Now,
also, can they hold their coalitions together?
Just about a minute left here. I just have to ask you on trade. That's the one thing where the progressives all stood up and cheered, except for the Fast Track Authority. And I understand why. I mean, if I remember Congress, I would not want to cede my authority on anything to the President of the United States, Republican or Democrat. How's that going to play out, John?
Well, it goes deep, and it's important you brought it up. President Obama has, with this speech, and really with what he's done since November, framed out the potential of a strong progressive coalition, organizing his base and really reaching deep into the great mass of Americans on behalf of what we have been referring to here as middle-class economics. If he pursues an aggressive, fast-track free trade agenda, he will break that coalition apart.
Yep.
He will force his allies to spend money opposing him. He will force his allies to organize, rally, march in opposition to what he's trying to do. So I cannot emphasize, I cannot be passionate enough on this. If the president puts too much energy into trade, he will harm not just himself, but the agenda he's trying to
the rest of the progressive agenda. Yeah, now I see it that way too, John. Hey, we got to run, but John, it's so good. Happy New Year to you, my friend. All right, and we want to see you next time you're in Washington.
I look forward to it. It's a great pleasure to be on with my favorite morning radio show.
All right, John Nichols from the Nation, nation.com.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
Grunt work. Love it, hate it, useful, not useful.
Necessary.
Our social entrepreneurs are people who have been on the front lines of social change. I've learned so much from talking with them. This is Cafe Impact, and I'm Jonathan Lewis.
I will say that I think is a challenge for anyone, especially the new workforce as they come in, is the ability to accept grunt work with grace.
The most boring, awful details are the most important elements of doing this work. From the way you save names in your Rolodex to the way you bank and you deposit checks. The truth is, this work isn't glamorous, it's rewarding. You don't go into this for the glamour, you go into it for the impact. And so it takes that determination to do the scut work to actually get anywhere.
It can be really challenging in a first job for someone who's coming out of finishing school to have the enthusiasm that they do to make the type of social impact that they've dreamed of. And now they're here in this first job and all of a sudden they're shouldered with all this grunt work. And they don't understand and they don't get it and they're resentful.
Talk more about the power of answering phones.
Sure, I did that myself, took out the trash, cleaned offices when I had to, and it's all good. There's power in being a good team player and in being somebody who sometimes has to support other people's leadership before you get to have your own moment in the sun.
Is it hard to wait?
It is absolutely hard to wait, especially if you're an alpha female like I am.
I think grunt work can help a new employee build trust internally and teach them the nuances of how an organization is run so that they can have a real good sense of what HR is doing, what finance is doing, what all the other departments are, and that actually makes them a better employee in the long run.
So in my role on a daily basis, I literally can be looking at a new venture in software. We could be looking at a microfinance deal. I could be making coffee, taking out the trash, and riding a tractor on any given day.
Have you found people who thought it was demeaning that they were given this job, work in the front office and make the coffee when they graduated with all A's from this great university?
Yeah, people like that just don't last very long in our world. If your approach to life is that, you're so smart and you're such a fabulous entrepreneur that you can't understand why people aren't giving you opportunities, it's really hard to advance.
Tune in to Gay USA with hosts Ann Northrup and Andy Hum for in-depth coverage of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender news. Watch Gay USA every week, only on Free Speech TV.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The Bill Press Show brought to you today in part by LifeLock. LifeLock Ultimate Plus, your best protection against identity theft. I know that's what I've got, and identity theft is everywhere. Another story I just saw about 26 minutes after the hour now, Congressman Jared Polis from Colorado coming up next here in studio with us. But it's a Friday. You look forward to Fridays as much as we do. One of the reasons is we love to look back and bring you our favorite sound clips of the week. Top 5, start at the bottom, work our way up to the top. Mitt Romney says, well, the decision will be made not by me, by the most important person in my life.
Number 5.
Most frequently asked question I get is, what does Ann think about all this? And she believes that people get better with experience.
And God knows he has enough experience running for president, done it already twice. Larry Wilmore has the latest take on, we haven't heard about him for a while, but Bill Cosby.
Number 4.
Women. Really, folks, how many more do we need? 35 allegations. Let's understand this number, okay? That's like if Bill Cosby drugged and raped every single U.S. president from George Washington to John F. Kennedy.
Yeah, that puts it in perspective. Yeah. At the State of the Union, the best line of the president all night.
Number 3.
I have no more campaigns to run. My only agenda, I know because I won both of them.
They're making fun of him. He's shot right back. Yes, indeed. Deflategate getting a lot of attention, and this little spoof by benstonium.com.
Number 2.
Why let deflated balls hold you back? Give your balls that extra pump for the big game. Ask your equipment manager about Cialis Inflatable and stop cheating.
benstonium.com. The morning after the State of the Union, Vice President Joe Biden on GMA with George Stephanopoulos. So he was asked, Hillary's running. What about you, Joe? You thinking about it?
Number 1.
Yes, there's a chance. But I haven't made my mind up about that. We got a lot of work to do between now and then. There's plenty of time.
Yeah, he doesn't hold back. Are you thinking about it? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm sure Stephanopoulos almost fell off his seat on that one. And the vice president said, yeah, he's thinking about it. He's got time to think about it. But, you know, why not? He is been a great vice president, great U.S. senator. He brings a lot of experience to the job, and Hillary should not get a free ride. Go, Joe, go. Congressman Jared Polis joins us next.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So this is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan, big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour now on this Friday, January 23rd. Good to see you today. Thank you again for joining us on your local progressive talk radio station nationwide. Thank you for being there on Free Speech TV nationwide as well, and worldwide on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. We're here in our nation's capital, our studio on Capitol Hill, brought to you today by the National Education Association and their great new president, Lily Eskelsen Garcia. The Good Teachers of America are creating great public schools for every student in America. You bet. We salute them and thank them for their strong support. You can find out more about their good work at their website, NEA.org. Big week for Congress this week with the President of the State of the Union. And then Democrats and Republicans, both with their response and their reaction to it. We wanted to turn to a good friend from the state of Colorado. Joining us in studio today, representing Colorado's 2nd District, Congressman Jared Polis. Hey, Congressman, welcome.
Hi, Bill. Good morning.
Great to see you. Your first visit, first of many, I hope, to our studio here on Capitol Hill. So overall, sitting there in the chamber, listening to the president, what did you think of the State of the Union?
I thought he really nailed it. It was a great speech, really focusing on values and saying, look, there might be different ways to get there. If you want to talk about, Republicans have ideas on college affordability, Democrats do on immigration. Let's put them out there and talk about them. But we shouldn't really question the value if we need to do something in this area, and really challenging the Republicans who are now in a governing capacity, controlling both chambers, to rise to the occasion and see if we can get some good things done for the country.
And you're sort of saying, okay, the last 6 years we've made a lot of progress, but the people who've really benefited are the top 1%. So now we've got a chance to help the 99%, right?
Yeah, I mean, you look at some indicators, and there's been a recovery. And, one of the startling things in the speech was, and the president was announcing, we have the lowest unemployment rate in so many years and so forth. You saw a lot of Republicans not even clapping, almost as if they were upset that things were getting better under President Obama.
Yeah. Well, of course, Mitch McConnell says things are better because the Republicans won, and everybody was so happy they won that, suddenly the market soars up and everything. Take credit for everything. But the phrase, Congressman, that he used, and he sort of set the agenda, which I'd never heard before. Maybe they coined it themselves. Middle class economics. But that says a lot, doesn't it, about what the focus ought to be?
It really should, and I feel it's always been the focus of the Democrats in Congress. Certainly, my focus. The middle class is the backbone of this country, right? And we all feel, as progressives and Democrats, of course, we want to do more to help the poor. We want to make sure that people have the chance to succeed and do well. But the middle class is what this country is all about. It's that promise of being able to support yourself, have home ownership, send your kids to college, take a vacation once or twice a year. I mean, that's what the American dream is all about. It's about the middle class. And the truth is, it's getting harder and harder for families to expect that their kids will be able to live that same middle class lifestyle that they had.
Right. And people say, I hear the cynics say all the time, well, there's no difference between the two parties. They're all the same, blah, blah, blah. Elections don't really matter. But you look at this agenda, and it's just taken piece by raising the minimum wage. One party's for it, and one party's against it, at least the leadership of that party. 2 free years of community college for every kid in America. One party says, absolutely. I saw Mitch McConnell last night saying, no way, no how, this is just going to pile on more debt. I mean, there really is a difference of approach to these problems, fundamental problems.
Huge differences. And, without some degree of college or community college, it's hard to get a good job these days. And that's just going to be the reality of the 21st century economy. And become
more and more difficult, right?
Absolutely. And, it's and as we know, regardless of what minimum wage is, whether it's $8 or $10 or $11, that's not enough to support a family. And to be able to support yourself and be part of the middle class and do well in this country and live the American dream, increasingly you need community college or college education beyond high school, and that's simply out of reach for a lot of families today.
There's no doubt in my mind, at any rate, if you just look at his record for the last 6 years, that the president is willing to compromise where compromise is necessary to get something done. Have you seen any sign from John Boehner that he might be willing to compromise this year to get some things done?
Well, they're going to have to with the way we have the setup with the Republicans controlling now both chambers. It's no longer simply a matter of Speaker Boehner compromising with Harry Reid. He needs to compromise with Barack Obama, who's the president of the United States, unless he has 2/3 of the Congress for his proposals, and he never does. I mean, he's putting things forward that Democrats simply don't support. So the only way to govern, Speaker Boehner will fail if he doesn't compromise with President Obama.
He even has to compromise probably with Mitch McConnell. I mean, I think Mitch McConnell may be more ready. My impression is that he's more ready to cut a deal than Boehner, at least unless Boehner stands up to his Tea Party members.
Yeah, I think there's challenges in both the House and Senate. I mean, the Senate, under the rules that it works under, they effectively need 60 votes for major pieces of legislation. So there's a built-in mechanism for some compromise. In the House, if the Speaker feels like it, he can ram through legislation without a single Democratic vote every day of the week. It never becomes law. For it to become law, there needs to be a compromise, work it out with the Senate, and they need the President's signature. But so far, Bill, all he's done is he's ran through these single-party bills, repealing Affordable Care Act, preventing women from having access to reproductive health services. I mean, every week it's one of these things.
Repealing the immigration.
Repealing immigration reform.
I mean, that's their only approach, isn't it? Repeal. They haven't come up with any immigration alternative plan of their own?
Nothing. I think there's rumors that perhaps this coming week or the week after, we're going to vote on a border security bill. And we all know border security is part of this issue, but it has nothing to do with the fact that there's 11 million people here illegally. I mean, those are two different issues, and we all want to include border security as part of immigration reform. But by itself, it doesn't solve the issue. The president did everything he could under his executive authority to be able to prioritize who should get deported, saying, you know what, we should deport criminals rather than parents of American children, and really a common sense approach. And that's what the Republicans are trying to undo as part of the Homeland Security funding bill, meaning they're threatening to close down the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, putting our country at risk of terrorist attack if they don't get their way in undoing the president's immigration reform.
Coming from California, this has been a huge issue for many, many years, and the politics of California are such that both parties now have to recognize the importance of this issue. Is it becoming, with the demographics in Colorado, the Latino community there, the growth of it becoming more and more a signature issue in Colorado too?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, and from my state and from California and many other states like Arizona and Texas, it hurts the Republicans to be branded as the anti-immigrant party, to be seeking to deport family members of American citizens who haven't committed any crimes here in this country, and to not offer any solutions. I mean, we're all about requiring people to get right with the law, pay penalties, register, have background checks. That's the bipartisan proposals all contain those provisions, but the Republicans are backing away even from those.
Yeah, I don't understand it. They really seem to say, we can win the White House back by declaring war of the Latino community.
And there's no solutions they offer. I mean, my constituents in Colorado, they're frustrated that there's 11 million people here illegally, that we're doing nothing. There's no real border security. There's people violating the law every day. There's businesses hiring people under the table. And that's just going to continue under the Republican lack of a plan. Frankly, the bipartisan immigration reform package, more than 2/3 of the Senate supported it last year. Many prominent Republicans like John McCain, every Democrat, that addresses a large part of this issue. Let's get it done.
Didn't even get a vote in the House.
And it had the votes to pass, by the way, Bill. That's what was so frustrating. If the Speaker had simply put that bill on the floor, it had enough support where we would have been able to attract the 20-25 Republicans we needed to pass it.
All right. Now, I've never lived in Colorado, but it's one of my favorite states because Colorado, for several reasons, one of which is Colorado's the first state to vote to legalize the recreational use of marijuana. How is that experiment going?
I thought you were going to say it's because it was the home of the Broncos. It was your favorite state. we didn't quite make it this year. Well, it is going very well. Colorado is a very libertarian ethos and very strong pro-freedom state. And if people want to smoke marijuana and grow pot in their home, it's none of the government's business. And so voters overwhelmingly approved marijuana legalization. It got more support than our Democratic candidates, and it even passed in Republican congressional districts. It was overwhelmingly popular in the district I represent. And it's simply because, look, it doesn't mean we sanction marijuana any more than we do alcohol or smoking, but you're not going to put people in jail for those things. I mean, those are decisions that adults can responsibly make and get the information they need. And frankly, we shouldn't be enriching cartels and criminals. We should have a legal, regulated, taxed way of doing it.
And it's interesting to hear you say that because I always see there's this one gentleman, Andy Harris from Maryland, Congressman, who tries to fight and keep marijuana illegal here in Washington, D.C., even though they had the vote. But to me, it's a very conservative, libertarian issue, and it's interesting to hear you say that everybody just sort of saw that in Colorado on both sides of the
and it's certainly generational to a certain aspect as well. So you'd find if you look at under 40 Republicans and Democrats in broad agreement, and you look at the older generation and you see it's more divided even among Democrats. And there's certainly places I go with the positions I have where some of the Democrats, the folks who've been around a while, kind of grumble at the position and they don't like the way it's going and all that. But I mean, it's not a voting issue for them. But frankly, it is for a lot of younger people because even if you don't recreationally use marijuana, chances are you might know somebody who does, and you don't want them to go to jail. I mean, that's a silly thing,
Right. But there are a lot of people who are saying, well, they're going to try this. You watch, there's going to be more crime and more people getting, driving while stoned and all that kind of stuff, and they're going to lose money. But economically, it has really turned the other way, hasn't it? I mean, economically, it's been a huge benefit.
Yeah, well, the tax revenues alone are expected to be over $100 million, which in our state, that's a lot of money. Teenage marijuana use is down 6% since legalization, so it's had an impact on reducing underage use of marijuana. And it's put a lot of drug dealers out of business and allowed police departments and sheriff's departments to focus on what we might call real crime that actually harms our communities.
Right. Congressman Jared Polis from Boulder, Colorado, the 2nd Congressional District here in studio with us on many issues, State of the Union, legalization of pot we want to talk about, and immigration and other issues. You want to weigh in, give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, just as really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Two anti-government, self-described revolutionaries have shot up a pizza restaurant as well as a Walmart in Las Vegas.
The internationally syndicated political series, The David Pakman Show, provides progressive talk, analysis, and interviews with the nation's youngest radio and television host, David Pakman. Find out more and catch up on all the latest episodes by visiting our website at freespeech.org.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Make it 12 minutes now before the top of the hour here, Friday, January 23rd, with Congressman Jared Polis from Colorado. Congressman, I had dinner with a friend last night, and just talking in general, he said, I hadn't even mentioned that you were coming on today, and he said, you know, I've been thinking of moving from Washington. He said, Boulder, Colorado. I've never been there, but I've always wanted to live there. He said, so you got this, you're lucky you've got this great reputation.
We have great towns in our district, from Fort Collins to Boulder to Vail to Winter Park for recreation, and it's a great place to live. Some of our towns, like Louisville, is always ranked. It's sort of the top 10 places to live nationally. Probably Boulder and Fort Collins would be, but they're a little more pricey, although by Washington, D.C. standards, they're actually pretty cheap. Yeah. But by Colorado standards, we consider them a little pricey. But we have a lot of great communities, good schools, a lot of sunshine, and happy, healthy people.
Yeah, great district out there. So we talked about pot. You were mentioning you're also involved in the hemp legalization, I guess, issue. How did pot and hemp, why are the two confused?
Well, they shouldn't be. And as my colleague that I work with a lot on hemp issues, Thomas Messi from Kentucky, likes to say, think rope, not dope with hemp. It's a historic American crop. George Washington grew hemp. Some of the very first American flags were made from hemp cloth. And today it's perfectly legal. Hemp is used in hundreds of products, and many products you use, and you may even buy in whether it's a health food store or clothing products, but it's illegal to produce in this country, which is the strangest thing.
Illegal to grow it? Even?
You can't grow an industrial hemp crop. It's all imported from Canada and from Turkey and other countries. So we're actually preventing American farmers from having this opportunity and all the jobs that come along with it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it makes no sense. So
what is the anti-hemp lobby? I mean, who are the anti-hemp forces?
I think one of the things you're up against in Washington is often just inertia. It's just people have done something, and this has been since the 1950s, the early 50s. They've done it a certain way, and so just to get it changed is hard. And the states have changed it, by the way. Colorado, even California, Kentucky, a number of states have ways to license and produce industrial hemp. The only, the theory here, as you may know, I mean, the leaf and the plant look like marijuana, so you have to make sure it's not marijuana, and there's a way of testing, random testing, all those ways that you do that. But there's no substantial narcotic content of the hemp crop. I mean, it has you can't smoke it, and it's simply for use in a lot of American industry. It's a great opportunity, not just for farmers, but for the processors, for consumer product companies that make products out of an industrial hemp. And as I said, it's a great history in our country, and it's a shame that we're forced to import it all from out of country.
Another issue that you have been taking the lead on, particularly since Congressman Barney Frank left the Congress, is the Employee Non-Discrimination Act, or ENDA. Now, the president has signed an executive order, which took him a little while to do, frankly. Some of us in the White House press corps were pushing him for a while. But he signed the executive order for federal contractors and federal employees. Are we going to see it through this Congress for all businesses?
Well, we came close last Congress bill. The Senate passed it with 2/3 and strong bipartisan support. It's another bill. We had enough support on the floor of the House to pass it. There was no question, but we couldn't get the Speaker to schedule a vote. So that bill has expired, as you know, at the end of the last Congress. It would need to start again, and it's tough going. It's tough going. I don't hear equal protection for gay and lesbian Americans as part of the Republican agenda these days.
No. And the problem is, which many people don't realize, I guess, there's still many states where it is
perfectly legal to fire somebody just because they're gay. So in about 22, 23 states have protection. So the majority of states, an employer can simply say, "Oh, I found out you're gay, you're fired," and there's absolutely no recourse for the employee. It's un-American. I mean, it's none of the boss's business who an employee is dating in their private time or who they love. I mean, that's just a very un-American concept, and yet it's fully legal to discriminate in more than 25 states.
I just have to ask you quickly on the one issue that where some Democrats they love the president's speech except for the Free Trade Authority. What's your position on that?
Well, I think the president is really making the case for how he feels that his trade agenda can be part of reinvigorating the middle class, part of making sure that Americans have more access to opportunity, and also part of, in the global geopolitical strategy, making sure that our trading partners and our allies play by our rules as opposed to by China's rules, which is a very aggressive country in courting a lot of these same countries that we're courting out there.
Right. So you'd support his Free Trade Authority?
Well, I haven't seen it yet. It's one of those things where you have to look at and evaluate. It's good point. Never support or oppose something you haven't seen. But the general concept is a good one, in that America should be leading the way, not digging in its heels and letting China lead the way.
Well, Congressman, it's good to have you there, not only fighting for the people of California, but Colorado, rather, but all the rest of us as well. And thanks for your time this morning. Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely. A pleasure, Bill.
All right. See you again soon. Congressman Jared Polis, and I'll be back with a quick parting shot.
This is the Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
So very quickly, for the most part, progressives were very, very excited by the President's State of the Union speech on Tuesday, and why not? I mean, 2 years of free community college, raising minimum wage, shutting down Gitmo, new relations with Cuba. If that's not a progressive agenda, I don't know what is. There was just one thing wrong, and that was the President's call for fast-track authority to make another trade deal. That ought to be a non-starter for Republicans or Democrats. I mean, why should Congress give away its authority to review, debate, or amend trade deals? I think it's downright unconstitutional. So except for that one stinker, Mr. President, we all have to say job well done. And that wraps it up for this week, folks. Good to have you with us. Have a great weekend, and we look forward to seeing you again right back here on Monday.
This is the Bill Press Show.